And good morning. My name is Allie Wood-Warren, and I am the First Year Center Coordinator. So I work in the First Year Center with a team of fabulous folks who are here to support you and help you through your first year. I'm going to hit the record button on the session right now. So
I already did,
just,
Allie.
oh,
I started the
well,
recording.
well, look at that.
I know, we're such a team.
See what you got behind you guys to help you get ready for your first year. You've got Liza and I. So again, welcome. Liza, do you want to, since you just were talking, do you want to just introduce yourself?
I sure can. Thanks, Allie. Hi, everyone. My name is Liza. I also work in the First Year Center with Allie. I am an academic advisor, and we work with an entire team of advisors who are really there for you throughout your entire year, as well as beginning now as you're planning for your first year. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. Early in the morning-ish for us here, and I know for many of you in the audience, you've probably joined us from elsewhere in the world. So welcome and thanks for taking time.
Yeah, that's right. I guess I was saying good morning, and I should
Maybe
also
not.
say good afternoon
Yeah.
or maybe
Good
good evening.
evening.
Who
Yeah.
knows, right? So welcome to everyone for sure. So I just want to remind everyone in the session today that, you know, as you heard, we are recording the session. And so, you know, we just ask that folks remain muted. If you have a question, please use the chat function. Keep in mind as you use the chat function that what you type is visible to everyone in the room. So that's important to remember. You are posting publicly, and so if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We may not get to them all right away, but we'll get to them by the end of the session for sure. We're just not sure. Sometimes it's hard to see how many questions might come in. So we'll just play that as we go and make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. I think that's it for the introductions and the beginning of the session here. If yeah, I guess one thing that I could sort of say is that yesterday we did a session, our part one, which talked about career planning and how to start thinking about your career. There's already a question in the chat about the place where yesterday's video was uploaded. It's probably not uploaded yet, probably not going to be uploaded until Wednesday or Thursday. But please, here I'm going to do something. What you can be, Liza, can you pop in, if you can, the link to Commons in the chat?
Sure.
If you can, for us to just get that in. So Commons is a website, a web page that is created off the U of M site. And that is going to be your go-to place for everything you need to know as a first-year student. So it's umanitoba.ca/Commons. That's what it should be probably, but Liza's going to pop it in the chat in a sec, just to make sure that we've got the right place. And that's where you're going to find all of the links, all of the, you know, all of the information that you're going to need as a first year student. So that's the place where you're going to find all of those things. Thanks, Liza, very much. I appreciate that. Okay, back to the session here. So as we mentioned in the first year center, we're going to join a little meeting here, so that's okay.
No, we're gonna exit that. Got a lot of things going on this morning.
Welcome to live video sessions, folks. This is how it goes, right? Anyways, so as we mentioned, Liza and I work in the first year center, and the first year center is really home to every single first year student at the University of Manitoba. Oh, good. Now my dog has joined us. That's great. This is the best session ever. He's dragging some dirty laundry. That's amazing. Okay. Anyways, okay. Give me 1 sec, and I'm going to pop that link into the. I'll double check, and we'll get that link, the correct link in the chat. Just give us a sec.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll just get it. I'll get it going once you start talking, and I'll plunk it in there. So we'll get you that link for sure. But nonetheless, as we said, First Year Center, we've got a team to support every first year student at the University of Manitoba, regardless of your faculty of admission. So if you're a U1 student, a science, arts, Asper, whatever program you're in, We are here to help you through your first year, making sure that you're in the right courses, that you're doing well academically, to assist if you have any difficulty, to cheer you on when you're doing amazing things. And so, yeah, we have a team of registration advisors. So if you make a phone call to the First Year Center, you'll be greeted by one of our registration advisors. They'll help you make appointments with academic advisors and direct you to resources that you can use to assist you with registering for your courses. We, of course, have academic advisors, and they're here to help. They are there to really help you do that planning piece, to really help you make decisions, to think about, you know, how to best manage your academic career and how do you move through your degree program, making it sort of the easiest way for you and so that you can do the best in your studies. Oh, it looks like, so is, I'm gonna actually just check in the chat here. I just see a couple chats coming up saying that they can't hear my voice. Oh, thanks, Nick. Join with internet audio. That's the thing. I think, Nick, you made that message yesterday for me, so thanks. But you have to make sure that you're joining with the internet audio. That will help. Okay. We also have some academic success workshops. So we facilitate workshops for students that help them to manage their time well, or plan how to use their time well, I guess. You know, we offer what we would call study skills workshops, and those are really designed to help you understand how you learn so that you're able to better engage with your studies. It's not just, you know, write your notes over and over again. Like, that's not how we learn. So we work in some theory into our workshops to make sure that we're giving you the right information. And yeah, so that's kind of what we do in the First Year Center. I'm gonna, I think, toss it over to Liza so that I can address some of the questions in the chat. As you can guess, it's a little difficult to go back and forth with the chat and talking. So I'm gonna turn it over to Liza. And you'll see and hear from me in the chat. If you have any questions, let me know. And Liza, it's over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Allie. I think just to the point of the chat, we've really taken time to design this presentation to ensure that we capture and answer most of what are the very common questions that students in your position have. So I'd certainly encourage you to provide us with your undivided attention. If something does come up along the way that you'd like some clarification on, we're more than happy to pause and provide that clarification. But I promise you, probably lots of the questions that are top of mind for you right now are going to be answered as we flow through the presentation. What Allie and I do find when we're working with students who are at your stage, so you're
Sorry, Liza, I'm gonna just jump in very quickly. I apologize. I read out when I said the wrong link. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I've got the correct link to UM Commons in the chat box there. But again, I would encourage you to hold off. Don't jump over and look at that. Stay with us and check that out once we're done here. That's the best thing I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I'll stop talking again.
So as you're looking to begin your first year, for you in the audience, your first winter term, there are a couple of things that you really need to tend to, key steps before you can really start diving in and planning for your first year courses. And first and foremost, you want to ensure that you have accepted your offer of admission. So that's step number one that you see here on the screen. All questions that you may have related to your admission, we really want to ensure that you're directing those to the appropriate office, and that would be our admissions office. I've included here on the slide the email address to our admissions office, so it's admissions@umanitoba.ca. If you have not yet accepted your offer, please go and check the email address that you applied to the University of Manitoba with. You should have a offer waiting for you where it will prompt you to go to your application portal. Once you take a look at that offer, you want to ensure that you scroll down to the very bottom and there will be a big accept button. You want to accept your offer of admission. It's not until you accept that offer that you've been formally admitted to the University of Manitoba, and then you have access to the registration system and everything else that comes with being admitted to the university. So first and foremost, accept your offer of admission. Secondly, you want to go and claim your Net ID. This is a really important step because it's going to allow you access to all of our online systems here at the U of M. And that would include things like your university email. As a University of Manitoba student, all students will have access and are required to use a dedicated U of M email address. So it's not until you claim your Net ID that you have access to this email. If we were all on campus, which we aren't during these times, it would give you access to the free Wi-Fi on campus as well. And it also provides you access to what we call our learning management system. Some of you may have used an online management system when you were finishing up high school, where you would have viewed lectures that your teacher was providing. Perhaps it's where you would have submitted assignments. Our learning management system is called Learn, and you are actually going to be doing everything related to your courses in this system. So super important, you can go to signum.umanitoba.ca. Keep in mind, you do have to accept your offer of admission first before you're able to move forward and claim your Net ID. Once you've completed those two critical steps, then you're really ready to provide all of your focus and start diving in and planning for your first year. And in this instance, your first winter term with us here at the university. And we know that all of that planning happens within something called the first year planning guide. If you're
Liza?
Yes.
Sorry again, I'm just going to pop in here again because I'm getting a lot of, I see a lot of chats, or a few chats anyways, from students who have actually already registered. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning, because our winter admission cycle is sort of a little different than what happens in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
Students are kind of accepting offers all through the summer and the fall term to start their courses in winter term. But we hold this session at this time because we know that there can be a lot of delay with study permits and these kinds of things. So we want to make sure that we're hitting the largest audience when we offer these sessions. So if you have already registered for your classes, feel free to please stay with us. That will help you to ensure that you've used the first year planning guide, that you've registered in the correct courses, that you're on track, that you've thought about all the things that are very important for new students to think about as they plan their first year. So just because you have registered already does not mean that this session is, you need to skip out of this. I would highly encourage students who have registered to stay with us, just again to make sure that they're, they have done this process correctly. There's other questions or comments in the chat about your own personal experiences. While that's okay, there's some questions that I just can't address that in the chat. And so I think what we'd ask is if you have questions about selecting or registering courses for your first year, then those are the kinds of questions we would be able to answer. It's not really possible to answer questions in a chat function in a webinar kind of format like this about your own personal experiences, that your specific plan for your degree. It's not really possible to address those in that way, but we certainly do want to help you and to answer those questions. And so if you have questions outside of like, how do we use the first year planning guide? How are you going to register for courses? If you have questions outside of that, then I'm going to put an email address here in the chat, and you can email our academic advisors and they are going to be able to answer your questions. There we go. So it's fycenter@umanitoba.ca. So you can send an email there with your questions about your own specific academic plan outside of first year. So there you go. So I'll stop talking again and you can continue, Liza. Thanks.
Perfect. So for those of you that have joined us and you are at the beginning of this process, you've accepted your offer of admission again, which is really critical. What we're going to do is walk you through today the key steps that you need to ensure that you're following to successfully register for your classes this upcoming winter term. This really is a process. It's one that you have to follow in the correct sequence, and it is going to take a lot of your time and attention. I often liken this process to preparing for a final exam. You would never just arrive on exam day without having done a lot of the work in advance. Probably hours, days, and weeks went into thoughtfully preparing for your final. The same process is going to happen as we look to get us ultimately to that end point, which is registering for our classes. The session today really is going to focus on these key 2 steps, all of the different degree programs that are available to you here at the University of Manitoba, and how do I go about and choose those courses that I need to take for this upcoming winter term. Tomorrow in our registration, our Get Ready to Register session dedicated to registration, we're going to walk through and complete this process by showing you how to create your timetable and then ultimately registering for classes. All of these steps can be completed, and the information that you need to complete these steps is found within the first year planning guide. We in the First Year Center put this guide together each year. We work with all of our partners across campus in all programs and faculties to ensure that you have the current and most up-to-date information. So I promise you, as you're planning, you need to go nowhere else other than the guide. You begin here and you end here. We've ensured that all of the information that you need is here within the guide. It is online. You can find it here at the dedicated URL, umanitoba.ca/firstyear. I'm going to actually pop into the guide right now. And as we get into the guide, you will see that it is a flippable and interactive document. The guide itself contains, as I said earlier, all of the information that we're going to need to complete all of those steps as we prepare to register for our classes. You'll see here at the bottom that there is a toolbar here for the guide. It's easily navigated. Frankly, I love the guide. It's super easy to use. Anything that you see within the guide that is bolded and or underlined is linked either to another page within the guide or to an external source that we have vetted to ensure that it provides you with all of the information that you need. As we look to begin in the guide, you'll see first and foremost, we're hit with those steps that we need to really refer back to as we thoughtfully put together our plan for our first year and get ourselves to that ultimate endpoint, which is registering for our classes. In order to complete those steps, you absolutely need information, and that information is contained within the guide. And we've put the table of contents together to nicely support each and every one of these steps that you see here. The first section of the guide is dedicated to first year planning. It contains critical information related to some of that foundational knowledge that you're going to need, and we'll walk through that together. The second section of the guide.
Liza,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to pop in again because I just want everyone to know. I think there's some a question maybe about trying to, as you're going through, trying to click through and look at some of these links. So for those of you who are just like for the participants here, you're not going to be able to go to your screen and click anything. What we're watching here is Liza's computer screen. And so she is the one who's sort of in control of that mouse. She is the one who's able to click things. When we're finished today, what we want to do here is to really show you how to use this guide. And then at the end of today's session or in the next day or two, or whenever you're going to do that, then you'll go into the first year planning guide and you'll be in the guide and you, sorry, I just have to And somebody's video up mute here. So you will have to go into the guide and click on those links for yourself. And that's why those links, you know, I think there was a comment like we can't access any of the links. And I just want to make sure that, Michaela, that is what you're talking about, is that you're trying to click things on the screen right now, with what Liza is showing, or are you on a web page and you can't get to any of the links? So if you can just answer that in the chat. And then there was also a question about the slide where we had information about admissions and the next steps that you would have to take and where you can get more information. At the end of the session, we're going to put that slide back up and then you can take a picture of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry. I'm
No,
out
no
again.
problem.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely. I think, you know, to Ali's point and maybe to Michaela's question, I know that you're probably really anxious to start clicking around and taking a look at the guide, and I really appreciate that. I think what you want to ensure is that you are following along with me here, that we're going to do this together so that you have a really broad understanding of how you're going to use the guide for your own personal purposes. So hang tight, you'll be able to access the guide after our session, but I promise you, taking the time to follow along with me will really ensure that when you are using the guide, you have a clear understanding of where to go and why you're going to those sections within the guide. The guide definitely, as I was saying earlier, has an entire section related to which courses you're going to take in your first year. So we do ultimately answer that question within the guide. We've also here at the bottom of the table of contents included something called a recommended introductory courses list. We're going to spend a lot of time there together. It highlights all of the courses that you have access to as a first year student. We've also included information for those of you who may find after today that there is a program that you're interested in, but perhaps it requires some coursework from high school that you did not take. Not to worry, we've thought about that, and we have a page dedicated in the guide to how you can go about upgrading some of those high school courses in the event that you find yourself in that situation. Last but not least, we do have an important dates page, which we will spend some time on as well. It's really important for you to understand as you transition into university level studies that you are going to be responsible for ensuring that you adhere to and understand all important upcoming dates. So the guide again covers it all off. It's your one-stop shop. So let's spend a little bit of time now starting to flow through this first section, which is the first year planning section. I'm just going to use the right-hand arrow here on the side as I flip through the guide. As I said earlier, I'm going to show you how to use the guide, but we do have a sort of a how-to page here. So in the event at the end of the presentation, you want a bit of a refresher, you can always come back to this how-to page to learn again for yourself how the pages are laid out and designed. The first page that I want to spend a little bit of time on is a definitions page. We do recognize here at the university that we do have a language of our own. We're probably going to use some terms that may be unfamiliar to you, and that's okay. We've captured some of the most common terms here that you're going to find within the guide and included a definition. These are important things for you to take into consideration to ensure that you understand fully what it is that we're asking of you or what it is that you're being asked to do. So the definitions page is very helpful and one that I would encourage you to come and visit back. I want to take a couple of moments just to highlight a couple of entries here because I find these cause a lot of first year students confusion, and they are something called the mathematics and written requirement. We also are often call them our M or W requirements. These are requirements that students here at the University of Manitoba must fulfill. So all students at the U of M are required to complete a minimum of one 3-credit-hour course that has a significant content in mathematics, and that would be considered your mathematics requirement. And all students at the U of M are also required to complete a minimum of one 3-credit-hour course that has a significant amount of written English. There is not just one course that fulfills each of these requirements. In fact, there's probably 50 to 70 courses that do fulfill these math and written requirements. Where the confusion lies often for first year students is when they need to fulfill this requirement. Lots of students enter into the university thinking that they must take a math and a written course in their first year or in their first term. And that just isn't always the case. It really is going to be dependent upon the program that you are targeting as to when you will need to fulfill that requirement. So we will dive a little bit deeper into that and provide you a bit more context when we start to highlight some of the specific programs as we move through the guide. Next up in the guide is a course planning basics page. This is a really important page to really get a sense of how our year is laid out and gives you some information about courses. It's really going to help you in your planning. We offer courses here at the University of Manitoba in 2 different terms during what we refer to as our regular academic session. And that regular session runs from September through to April. So you'll see here that this graphic is divided into our 2 terms, fall and winter term. I know that all of you in the audience today have made the decision to begin your studies here at the U of M in the winter term. And so I think it's really important to make note that some of your planning is going to look and feel a little bit differently because you are beginning your studies halfway through or in the middle of our regular academic year. So many students who you might start interacting with in your courses as you begin those in winter term actually started their schooling here with us in the fall term. So they've actually started their coursework in September, and we are in the middle right now of our first term. We're coming close to the end of our fall term. And so many of our students, our first year students, did begin their studies in the fall term. So for you, when we're talking about course planning, we're actually going to be talking about you planning for this second term, the winter term, part of our regular academic session, and that's going to run from January through to April. It's important though for you to really get a good understanding that our regular year does run through fall to winter because you're going to plan for both a fall and winter term next year. So some of what I will be talking about is going to be applicable to you next year when you plan for your entire regular year. And some of what we're going to talk about is really going to be customized to you because you are starting midway through the year. Regardless, whether you start in the fall or start in the winter term, you have the ability in each term to take a maximum of 5 courses. So for you joining us here in the winter term, you will have a maximum of 5 courses to be able to take. And each of those courses within a singular term has a credit hour value. And that credit hour value in one term is 3. So each term, you have the ability to take 5 courses at 3 credit hours each, meaning you could take a maximum of 15 credit hours in the winter term. When we talk about a full regular academic year, we talk about it as comprising of 30 credit hours because you could, in theory, take 15 credit hours in the fall and 15 credit hours in the winter. But again, for those of you starting in January, you will have the ability to take up to a maximum of 5 courses or 15 credit hours. You will find that some of the courses as you are doing your planning are not just 3 credit hour in value, but they're actually 6 credit hour in value. And those are what we refer to as spanned courses. Those are courses that in fact begin in the fall term and they extend over the entirety of the year. These are not, for the most part, going to be courses that you will have access to because you are starting again in the winter term. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on when we do some more specific planning. Do you have to take 5 courses this winter term? Absolutely not. And this is what the next page here really is reflecting, is some of the considerations for you really to think about as you're thinking about how many courses am I going to be taking this winter term. Some of the considerations may not be applicable because of the nature of what we all sort of find ourselves in during this pandemic. Oftentimes we talk about students considering what you have going on outside of school. Some of you may have had a job and some of you may still be working. That would be something to really think about to ensure that you are setting yourself up to be successful this winter term. You definitely want to ensure that you have the time and attention to focus on all of the courses that you have registered for, because it is going to eat up a lot of your time. So don't underestimate the amount of time that it's going to take to really be successful in the courses that you are registering in. Some of the other considerations that we certainly do talk about, especially when we're thinking about our regular academic year, would be things related to funding or study permits. Some of you eventually will make your way here to Canada and on campus and will be doing so on a study permit. You may need to ensure that you are registered in a certain number of courses. And that's what we talk about here at the bottom of this graphic on the course planning basics page. And that's really related to the number of courses and you being considered either a full-time or part-time student. And so that often can be a consideration when you are looking to ensure that you're fulfilling certain requirements related to funding, whether that's scholarships or government funding, or perhaps a permit that you are using to be able to study here in Canada. For those students, just to make you aware, student who takes a minimum of 3 courses per term or a total of 18 credit hours in the year would be considered minimally a full-time student. So whether you do 3, 4, or 5 courses per term, you're considered full-time. Anything less than that would fall you into a part-time category and you would be considered a part-time student. We're going to actually be using a course planning sheet, and I wanted to highlight that here before we move on and start diving into some of the specific planning. And it's a link that you see here. So remember, the guide is interactive. Anything bolded and underlined, I can click on, which I'm going to do here. And it's actually going to take me to an external PDF. It's our 2020-2021 fillable course planning sheet. This is going to be your worksheet. I'm going to be actually assigning you homework at the end of our session today. And this is what you're going to be using to do your planning. You'll see here that we have shown you fall term. And again, don't be confused by that. It's just simply because we want to reflect and often do the bulk of our advising with students who do begin in the fall term. But for you, you're going to be using this course planning sheet to actually pop in and plan for your winter term courses. All of that key and critical information that we just talked about is actually captured here on this worksheet. And this worksheet actually is going to be something that we will ask you to submit to an advisor if you want to meet and discuss some of the decisions and questions that you have. So just wanted to highlight that when it comes time for us to use our worksheet here, that I've actually found it in the guide here on our course planning basics page. So I'll provide you with a bit of a reminder a little bit later on. As we look to flow through the remainder of the first year planning section of the guide, I'm actually going to jump over the next 2 sections. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're actually going to dive deeper into this tomorrow during our registration session for our final Get Ready to Register session. But I just wanted to highlight that, again, the guide contains all of the information that you need to complete those final 2 steps in our process, which is creating a timetable and then ultimately registering for your classes. That rounds off our first year planning section. And again, I went through it as a pretty general overview. I would encourage you to go back just to ensure that you have a really strong understanding of what our year looks like, how many courses you can take in an individual term. So anytime you have questions, always come back to the guide. I'm almost 100% sure that most of your questions can be answered here within the guide. So the next section of the presentation really is going to focus in on what is probably top of mind and most exciting to those of you in the audience today. And that's really the answer to the question, what courses am I going to take in this first year or in this first winter term that I'm going to be embarking on very shortly? And this section of the guide takes you to an index page that we've designed. It's nicely laid out and divided by a list of all of the faculties that you have access to here at the University of Manitoba, as well as a listing of all of the programs. So this is a great place for you to start, especially if you're, like many students, exploring or undecided. Some of you may be joining us this winter term because you know that you want to go to university, but you don't fully have an appreciation of what exactly I want to do. What is the program or faculty that I want to study? And that's okay. The guide is laid out to really help you also choose your courses. It's also laid out as well for those of you who may be on the other end of the spectrum and you have a very clear vision or understanding of what program it is that you want to study. Either way, this is really the starting point for you to identify all of the options that are available to you here at the University of Manitoba. So you'll see through the index page here, lots and lots of choice available to you. So use this as an exploration page and use it eventually to go and access your dedicated program. Each of these programs has what we call a dedicated program planning page. So in a moment, I'm going to click on a program and it's going to take me to a dedicated page. That page is really going to provide you all of the information and advice that you need when it comes time to choosing your courses. It's going to highlight the specific admission requirements, and it's also going to address the written and mathematics requirements, as well as give you a snapshot of the key high school courses that you will have needed to complete in order to ensure that you have access to all of the first year courses that are required in that particular program. I think what's really important to ensure that each of you know in the audience today is each program page is laid out and designed identically. So whether I am going to go and take a look at agriculture, whether I'm going to take a look at biological sciences, maybe I'm a student who's interested in pharmacy or geological sciences, it does not matter the program. Every time I go and visit that page, they are laid out identically. So if the program or programs that I'm highlighting today to show you how you go about choosing your courses aren't the programs of your choice, please do not tune out. The steps and ways in which I'm going to choose my courses using these program planning pages is exactly the same way that you will use it for regardless of the program that you're looking at. So for the purposes of today, I'm going to start with the Asper School of Business. I could find that either in the list of faculties here under the Asper School of Business, or I could go and actually find it down here under the list of programs. Again, keeping in mind that the guide is interactive, I'm going to click on the Asper School of Business, and it's actually going to take me here to my dedicated program planning page. Again, keep in mind, regardless of the program that I click on, I'm going to come to a page that's laid out identically. For a quick overview, the program planning page, again, begins with a link to a general overview page. Keeping in mind, for many of you, you're probably still in that exploring phase. If you want some more information on what the Asper School of Business has to offer, you can click on this overview link, and it's going to take you to a dedicated page here at the University of Manitoba to provide you some of that general information. Each program planning page will contain first year courses box, and that's going to highlight the key first 30 credit hours, because that's what year one is contained or made up of. Again, keeping in mind 15 credit hours in the fall, 15 credit hours in the winter, gives us a total maximum of 30 credit hours that you could take in your regular academic year. It's going to provide a gray admissions box. This is important information that's going to detail for you specifically what it is you are required to do to be eligible to apply to this particular program. On page number 2, all program planning pages will have a tips for choosing courses box. Lots of really important information that's going to help guide you as you're looking to choose your courses for this particular program. Here is the snapshot of the high school prerequisites that you will need. Again, what are those key grade 12 courses that you will need to have completed to ensure that you have the necessary prerequisites to take all of the courses that make up year one of this particular program? We provide a little bit of information here and link you to a dedicated admissions page. So if you want some further information as you get further into your year as to how you go about applying to each program, we link you to the admissions page. And we also provide you with some information on the minimum time to graduate. You know, we do often talk about years when we're speaking to students, but in fact, what you'll see from this section here that degrees are actually made up of credit hours, and most degrees are made up of 120 credit hours of coursework. So eventually you will have to complete those key 120 credit hours in order to successfully graduate with this particular degree. Last but not least, we do have a need more information box, and that's going to link you to the dedicated website for this particular program. So here, if I were to click on, it would take me to the Asper School of Business website. So again, giving you even more information. So I can't stress enough, you need to go nowhere else other than the guide, whether you are an exploring student or you know exactly which program it is that you want to study for this upcoming year. As we begin to start to take a look at how we go about choosing our courses, and in this example for the Asper School of Business, there are 3 key sections of each program planning page that you're going to want to spend or rather pay special attention to. And those 3 sections are the first year courses chart, the gray admissions box, and the tips for choosing courses section. You can't thoughtfully and successfully choose your courses without using all of these 3 boxes together. They really do work in conjunction with one another. And in a moment, I think as we begin to do some planning, I think it will become quite clear to you as to why. So if I really want to move on and start taking a look at choosing my courses as a student who is interested in the Asper School of Business, I'm going to first take a look at the first year courses chart. As I said earlier, the first year courses chart is going to detail line by line each and every course that makes up year 1 of this particular degree program. You'll see that each of the courses listed are bolded, which is a good clue to me that I'm going to be able to click on this course and it's going to take me elsewhere. So for the purposes of this chart, you'll see that the first course listed here is Economics 1010. It's Introduction to Microeconomic Principles, and it's actually a 3 credit hour course. If I click on Economics 1010, it's actually going to take me to an alternate source. That's our academic calendar. And this is a really critical place for you to come to and spend some time. The reason being is it's going to provide you with the course description. Course descriptions are important for 2 reasons. Number 1, it provides you with information as to what this course is about. Keeping in mind, as you're choosing courses, you want to ensure that you're choosing those courses that are the best fit for you. In this instance, Economics 1010 is a course that is part of year 1. So it is a course that you're going to have to take. You want to make sure that you have a good understanding of what this course is all about as you're beginning to prepare to take this course. The other reason why course descriptions are important is because you're going to find that a lot of information is contained related to prerequisites. You will find prerequisites are related to not only needing to have taken possibly a course in high school. So you'll find that some courses here at the University of Manitoba have a high school prerequisite. Other courses that you may be looking at may in fact have a university level prerequisite, meaning there may be a university level course that you must take in advance of being able to register and take the course that you are currently reading. If we take a look at Economics 1010 and read it over, we'll actually see as we read through this that in fact there are no prerequisites, not a high school nor a university level prerequisite. So this is a really good clue for me to know that regardless of what I did in high school and regardless of the courses that I'm going to be taking this term, I have free access and full access to take Economics 1010. This may not be the case for all courses. And so again, we will come back a little bit later on to show you an example of some other courses that may have some prerequisites. As I start to take a little bit closer look at the first year courses chart, again, I'm going to be going line by line. I'll see that the next course up is Economics 1020. Third course that I see here actually is a calculus course, Math 1520. It's a 3 credit hour course, so I'm filling a 3 credit hour plus a lab requirement by taking this particular course, but this entry actually looks a little bit different than the economics entries, and that's because there is some choice here available to us. You'll see that I am still fulfilling or only fulfilling a 1 course requirement, and I know that because it's a 3 credit hour requirement that's triggered here in this particular chart. But you'll see that in fact, I have access or I'm shown 3 different calculus courses. Anytime you come across a staggered either or situation in a first year courses chart on any program planning page, it's important for you to know that you are being asked to take only one of these courses. Anytime that it's staggered, typically the first course that is listed is the preferred or recommended course. So in this case, Math 1520, Introduction to Calculus for Management or Social Science, is the recommended course. However, I could take any one of these courses, Math 1520, Math 1500, or Math 1230, and I would still nicely be fulfilling this 3 credit hour and lab requirement. Here's where taking a look at the course description is going to help you, because although you have the ability to choose any one of these courses, you want to ensure that you are choosing the course that is the best fit for you. So as an example, if I were to click on Math 1230, Differential Calculus, and I go and actually take a look at the calendar entry, if I take a look and start to read, the first section here tells me this course is intended for students in mathematically rich disciplines, including those planning to enter an honors or a major program in mathematics or statistics. So that may not actually be the category that I fall into, especially if I'm taking this course for the purposes of ASPR. So again, really ensure that you are reading the course description over carefully. If I go and click on Math 1520, I will read the course description and see that in fact, this one does not give me sort of that warning. It's not for mathematically rich disciplines. In fact, this was the recommended course. If I read further, you'll see that in fact, here's some information related to prerequisites. So the prerequisites for Math 1520 is actually a minimum grade of 60% in pre-calculus mathematics 40S. So again, that is the pre-calculus mathematics course that you would have taken in high school. So again, it's a clue to you that in order to take this course, there was a prerequisite or high school course that you will have needed to have completed in advance of being eligible to register for this particular course. Next up on the list, if we start to flow through a little bit more quickly through this first year courses chart, again, is statistics. It's an either or situation. It's a 3 credit hour plus a lab course. So again, specific courses are laid out for me here in this first year courses chart. So I don't have a lot of flexibility. These are the first 4 courses that are required in year 1 of this particular program. Next up within the first year courses chart, you'll see that in fact, I'm being asked to take 6 credit hours of courses from departments, and these particular departments are listed, but in fact, they're not providing specific course recommendations or requirements. And we're going to talk a little bit about where then do I go to find these courses to be able to fulfill these 6 credit hour requirements. You'll see next in the first year courses chart that in fact, a written requirement is required if Ask for School of Business is the particular program that you're looking at targeting. So again, it's a 3 credit hour course. There are some exclusions here. So again, paying special attention to details and ensuring that you know which courses you are eligible or not eligible to take. And we'll again show you a guide that provides you a long list of courses that fulfills these requirements. And last but not least on our first year courses chart is a non-business elective. It's telling me here to ensure that I go and use the tips for choosing courses box to get more information on how I go about choosing my non-business elective. So that is a quick snapshot of the first year courses chart for the Ask for School of Business. Again, keeping in mind that all program planning pages do contain a first year courses chart. What is important to remember when you are planning for any particular program is that year 1 of the program may not be entirely what is required to be admissible to that program. And that's really where this second critical box comes in, and that's the gray admission box. Admission to the Ask for School of Business, if we read our gray admission box, says that it requires 24 credit hours of courses, and those are the 24 credit hours listed in the chart above. So in fact, this is a great example of a particular program that really doesn't have a lot of flexibility. It's telling us that what you see listed in the first year courses chart is in fact what is required to be eligible to apply to this particular program. This is not the case for all programs on campus, and I will provide you with an example a little bit later on of a program that is much more flexible. So what you will find is that Many programs on campus, although they do have a set of first-year courses that are required within the degree, they do have a lot of flexibility embedded with them. So there is the ability for you, especially as an exploring student, to do some sort of mixing and matching of courses across multiple programs. The admission chart actually provides us with a little bit more information, telling us that if we were a student who was looking to take a full course load, keeping in mind a full course load refers to our regular academic year, our fall and winter terms. So if you wanted to do a full 30 credit hours, then there are some recommendations of additional courses that you could take. I think it's really important for us to pause here and really recognize you within the audience beginning your studies sort of halfway through the year. It's not going to be possible for you to be able to take a full 24 or 30 credit hours for this term. Again, keeping in mind that you'll have the ability to take a maximum of 15 credit hours. So when we start to plan, you'll start to see that we're not actually going to be able to fit in all of these courses in this winter term, and that's okay. You've started midway through the year, so you're going to have next fall and winter term to be able to take the remaining courses and ensure that you are eligible for admission to the particular program or programs that you are targeting. Last but not least, again, if we go over to the tips for choosing courses section, again, read it over carefully. And this is really where we're going to find some more information and links on how it is that we go and choose courses in those more open and flexible categories. So I think for the purposes of this section of the presentation, what I'd like to do is start putting some courses down on our program planning sheet or our worksheet. I think between the first year courses chart, as well as our admission box, and some of the information that we are going to find here in the tips for choosing courses section, I think we've got enough information to begin to use our worksheet and start popping some courses in. So again, remember, I found my course planning sheet on the course planning basics section of the first year planning guide. You'll be able to access it at the end of the presentation. And this is really where I'm going to start to take a look at planning for this winter term. So again, I have access and the ability to take up to 5 courses. Am I going to take 5 courses? Possibly not. Again, keeping in mind, you want to consider, first of all, that our year is remote. So we're all going to be learning virtually. That may present some challenges for some students. So you may want to consider reducing your course load. These are decisions and considerations for you to decide upon. But for the purposes of the presentation today, you'll see that I'm going to load myself up with 5 courses, and there's going to be some other reasons behind that as well, even if I'm a student not looking to take 5 courses. And I'll address that in a moment. This is a fillable PDF. So again, keeping in mind that I'm going to be able to.
Liza.
Yes. Yep.
I just want to make sure. I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat here about, this notion we're talking about right here, sort of this prerequisite and planning, the students who have had the sort of opportunity to be with us in fall can sort of take some of those prerequisite courses for winter. So there's a lot of questions about prerequisites happening, right, going through the chat. So I guess there's a couple of things, and also like related to that are questions about taking courses in summer to sort of catch up. I'm gonna just sort of say this blanket statement about summer courses. We're not talking about summer courses right now. Is it possible to take some courses in the summertime to sort of catch up somewhat? Yes, that's a possibility. But right now, we don't know what the summer schedule will be. We don't know what courses will be offered. We won't know that until probably early in March. So it's not something right now that we're going to even discuss. Can you take summer courses? Yes, there will be some summer courses that will be available for students. How will that impact you when you're sort of trying to catch up to fill up sort of the prerequisites or take some prerequisite courses? You know, this is one of the challenges that happens when we start in winter term. So for those who have questions specifically about how do I make up prerequisites, can I continue in my first year courses without having some of those prerequisites? What does that look like? How does that affect me specifically? I'm going to encourage those students who have those kinds of questions to actually contact our office and sort of have a conversation with an academic advisor. That's going to be the only way for us to really explain really thoroughly how do you make up these sort of how do you get yourself back sort of on track, I guess, and that's not a very good term, but how do you sort of manage that so so that you're not behind, you're able, excuse me, to you know, continue seamlessly in your degree program. So I'm sorry that you know, these are sort of things that we can't really answer in this kind of a format because it's very specific to each student. But certainly there are advisors who can help you to figure out what does that look like for you? How are you going to make up some of those prerequisites, and what does that look like for you in the summer and as you move forward in your courses in next fall and moving forward. So I know that it's sort of a little bit of a it's a sort of a non-answer in that sense that the answer is well, there is no answer to that question generally, right? It's very specific, dependent specifically on the students. And so, yeah, so that's kind of, that's what I would say to those kinds of questions. And again, if there's follow-up to these kinds of questions, I very much encourage you to email fycenter@umanitoba.ca. And you'll be connected with an academic advisor. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm just going to let you continue, Liza, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think just to Ali's point, again, I know that you are starting in the winter term, so you'll see here that most students are beginning with us in the fall term, and so their planning does look a little bit different, and they're using the guide in a slightly different way because they do have the ability to possibly plan for 24 to 30 credit hours of coursework. They are really being probably more mindful of those key admission requirements to ensure that they are capturing all of those in their planning for their first year, if their goal is to apply at the end of their first year for their program of choice. Given that you have started first year midway through our year, that's not going to be possible for you, and that's okay. You got a nice jump start. This is a great term to be able to dive into those courses, but not overload yourself. Really find those successful strategies as you navigate yourself through the winter term, and then plan for future terms to ensure that you're capturing and all of those admission requirements and ensuring that you maintain competitiveness throughout the entire process. So, I know that can sometimes be some frustration with that because you can't load up with 24 to 30 credit hours in the winter term, but please try and see it in the opposite, which is it's a great opportunity to get yourself started and to really understand the different ways in which university level studies function. So we are going to be focusing exclusively on the winter term. We're going to go back to the guide. And when you're doing your own planning, you're going to do a lot of flip-flopping the way that I am here, back and forth between the guide and your worksheet. Again, keeping in mind that although, adhering to and ensuring that you understand what the admission requirements are for your particular program, you do have the flexibility because you are not going to be applying to ASPR at the end of the winter term. So you have some flexibility, and honestly will have to be flexible in your course selection because when it comes time to eventually registering for courses, you may find that space is limited, and some courses that you may have originally planned for may be filled. So you want to ensure that you are including as many courses as possible on your course planning sheet, not necessarily because you may intend on taking them all, but you want to ensure that you have a wide range of options so that when it does come time to register, you have some backup plans in place, and knowing that those backup plans are rooted in those key courses that are in fact required for this particular program. So if I'm to take a look at and sort of go line by line down my first year courses chart, because again, that's one approach to beginning to plan for ASPR, I could begin to start taking those first few courses and moving them on to my course planning sheet. So we know that both Economics 1010 and Economics 1020 are required courses in year one. I did read over the course descriptions. There were no prerequisites. In fact, I didn't need Economics 1010 in order to be eligible to take 1020. They are two distinct courses. They do not work off of one another. So again, I could go to my course planning sheet and I could plan to take both of those courses in the winter term. So again, just to provide you, 1 second here, it's telling me that. Here we go. So again, I'm just going to pop in Economics 1010. I'm going to pop in Economics 1020. Again, filling in those 3 credit hour courses. So I have 3 credit hours in Economics 1010, 3 credit hours in Economics 1020. If I go back to the first year planning guide, and bear with me here, it looks like perhaps I got bumped off of my ASPR page. So again, I'll go back to the table of contents. You can see I can find ASPR School of Business here. So it takes me right back to the page that I wanted. Next up on the list was my calculus course. I did have the high school prerequisite for that. I'm choosing to take Math 1520. It is the recommended course. So I'm going to include that on my course planning sheet. So again, going back, including Math 1520. And keeping in mind that it also includes a lab. And we'll talk a little bit more about labs once it comes time to register for these particular courses in the session that we will be diving into tomorrow. Next up on the list, if I go back to my ASPR page, again, is Statistics 1000. It's a 3 credit hour course. It also includes a lab. I may decide that I want to take this particular course. So again, going back to my course planning sheet and including Statistics 1000, it also is a lab-based course. And again, just capturing the information of those courses that I know using my first year courses chart that are required for the particular program that I am planning for. Next up in the first year courses section, and this is frankly a section that I think is going to be important, especially for you as a student starting in the winter term. You may come on registration day and take a look at your course planning sheet and realize that in fact, perhaps there isn't space in some of these courses. And this may very well happen. You may want to take Statistics 1000 in the winter term, but because the bulk of students who started in the fall term had access to registration for both fall and winter term, you're going to find that some of our courses may be filled or close to capacity. So having an open mind and being very flexible in the courses that you are going to be taking in the winter term is really going to be critical for your success to ensure that you're able to take the number of courses that you have planned for this winter term. And this is where these more open sections within the first year courses chart come into play. So you'll see next up on the list, we have a 6 credit hour category for some department courses, There's also a written course requirement, as well as a non-business elective. The difference between these sections and the sections you see up at the top is that there are not specific courses listed. Here, it's going to be up to me to determine which courses do I want to take to fulfill these remaining categories. So there's some flexibility and a variety of courses that I can choose from, which probably opens up more opportunity for me to possibly find space in these more open categories of courses. To find a listing of courses that fulfill these requirements, I'm actually going to refer over to the tips for choosing courses box. Again, I've read it over thoroughly. It's telling me that, in fact, if I'm looking to fulfill the department courses, my non-business elective, as well as choosing my written course, that in fact, I'm going to go to something called the recommended introductory courses list. Keeping in mind, anything bolded is linked within the guide. So if I want to click on the recommended introductory courses list, it's actually going to take me to the back section of the guide, page 164. And here is a full section dedicated to each and every course that you have access to as a first-year student. There is a collection of probably 200 plus courses. They have all been categorized by the faculty that offers them. So you'll see agriculture, architecture, School of Art. Do you need to be in those particular faculties to take these courses? Absolutely not. Each year, these faculties and programs provide us with a list of courses that they deem are perfectly appropriate to you as a first-year student, as well as courses that are going to give you a good sense or idea of what it might be like to be in this particular program. So this is your best and safest place to do course exploration, especially if you're being asked to fulfill courses within those more open categories. Those are often those elective categories that we talk about. Of note, on the recommended introductory courses list, you'll see that we've provided some icons for you. Those include the W and the M to note any course that fulfills a written requirement or a mathematics requirement. If you remember from the ASPR first year courses chart, they were asking that we did take a written course, a 3 credit hour written course. So that might be something that we may want to keep our eye open for. And we also provide some icons for courses to identify the additional categories that they might fall into. So one of the programs that you might be looking at may be asking you to fulfill a course that is more humanity-based or social science-based, or maybe your program is asking you to fulfill a science requirement, but not asking you to do a high level or rigorous faculty of science course. So again, this particular course list is really trying to provide you as much information as possible to ensure that you're making the best choices for you and the program that you're planning for. So if we think back to our first year courses chart related to ASPR, and again, I can open that up just to provide you with a little bit more context, you will find that we are looking to fulfill the department course requirement. So it's telling us here, choose 6 credit hours of courses from any one of these departments. We have anthropology on the list, we have history, we have mathematics, philosophy, political studies. If I go back to my recommended introductory courses list, here you will see is where I can start to flow through and start to find those courses that fall into those subjects or categories. So first up on the list, I believe, was anthropology. You'll see that anthropology falls within the Faculty of Arts. There are 2 recommended courses within the subject of anthropology. That's Anthropology 1210 or Anthropology 1220. They are 3 credit hour courses. So I could look to take an anthropology course if after, again, reading the course description, this felt like a good fit for me. And I think it's important to pause here to really talk a little bit about how do I go about choosing courses when I have the flexibility and option. Often I'd say that's probably the top question that we get in our office is like, what is the best course for me to take, or help me to choose a course in this more open category. And the best piece of advice that I can give to students is choose a course that you have an interest in, choose a course that perhaps plays to a skill set that you have. Really ensure that you are reading over the course description, because that's the only place that you're really going to be able to identify whether or not this course is of interest to you and possibly falls into a strength category for you. You know, Allie may love anthropology, but if after reading this course description, it's not of interest to me, even though Allie loved the course, it may not be the best fit for me. So I may want to go back to the introductory courses list and take a look at a different course that may fall into a different category, because I want to ensure that the courses that I'm choosing are the best fit for me. So, you know, after reading anthropology, in fact, I did find it interesting. So, you know, anthropology 1210 would fulfill 3 of the 6 credit hours of those department courses. So I could go back to my course planning sheet and I could add anthropology 1210 to my course plan as a possible course that I'm going to be using to, again, fulfill the department course that we have here on the first year courses list, rather first year courses chart. Again, I could continue on and go and find another 3 credit hour course, either from anthropology or from another subject. That would be entirely up to me as to whether or not I wanted to mix or match courses. Probably next up on the list, and I'll just demo how to use the recommended introductory courses list to choose a written course. Again, there are some exclusions here, so I want to make sure that even though when I go to the recommended introductory courses list, I may find these courses and they do have a W beside them, ASPR is telling me these cannot be used to fulfill my written requirement. So back to the recommended introductory courses list. And what you will see as I flow through this list is there are many courses within the guide that in fact fulfill the written requirement. Probably first up on the list, if I zoom in, you'll see that there are some Asian studies courses. They do have a W beside them. Those would fulfill a written requirement. There's a Catholic studies course, does have a W beside it. It again has a significant amount of writing. It's a 3 credit hour course. I could use that course to fulfill the written requirement for the purposes of ASPR. So again, there aren't just 2 or 3 courses. You'll see that many courses within the recommended introductory course list actually do fulfill the written requirement. Do ensure that when you do choose your writing course, that you're choosing a course again that speaks to a certain interest level that you have. You're going to be asked to do a lot of writing in this course. So you want to ensure that you in fact are interested in the subject matter. When I did my research, when it came time to choosing my written course, I actually found a course. It was in fact a religion course. You'll see here, it was Religion 1322, Introduction to Eastern Religions. It has a W beside it. It's a 3 credit hour course. I'm going to choose to include that as part of my course planning to fulfill the requirement of my written course for the purposes of the ASPR School of Business. So again, going back to my course planning sheet, I might in fact have to have some pen and paper off to the side because I may want to include this, although it's beyond 5 courses, simply because when it comes time as a winter term student to begin to register for these courses, you may find that in fact, there may not be space in all of the courses that you want to take. So having a little bit more of a long or lengthy list might help you on registration day to ensure that you are able to get into as many courses that you are choosing to take for this winter term. So I think this really gives you a good snapshot of how it is that you go about using the recommended introductory courses list to plan for a very specific program like ASPR. I think it's also important to remember, especially for those of you that are undecided in the audience, some of you may not know that you want ASPR or biological sciences or computer science. So you may not have a program planning page to start with, and that's okay. I would invite you to start your planning here on the recommended introductory courses list. You'll see as I flow through, there's approximately 200 courses across all programs and faculties. Start to click on the course code, do some reading, and start to get a list going of courses that you believe are of interest to you. What you might come to find, in fact, is that there are some commonalities that occur. Perhaps you're really finding that you're gravitating towards a lot of courses within the Environment, Earth, and Resources faculty. Perhaps the courses that you're choosing all come from the Faculty of Kinesiology. So again, then you can go back to that dedicated program planning page and start to take a look at the first year courses chart in the admission section to see what are the other recommendations of courses that I should be taking as I'm looking to plan here for my winter term. So I'm going to, again, go back to the Ask For page. Again, I want to ensure that everyone understands that, we're not going to be able to take a full first year of this particular program this winter term. So there is going to be some mixing and matching of some of the requirements that you find not only in the first year courses box, but as well within the admissions section. Keeping in mind that you're going to have alternate terms to ensure that you're picking up those courses that are required for admission. And again, always coming back to the tips for choosing courses section to ensure that you have a full understanding of all of the additional recommendations that are being forwarded along to you from the Ask For School of Business as you look to plan for your first winter term for this particular program. So I don't know, Ali, if there are some specific questions in the chat that I can address, especially as it relates to course planning at this part of the presentation. Just want to make sure that we're capturing some of the key questions before I sort of move on.
Yeah, I think I think we touched on this already. It's really, what I'm seeing are questions about, that connect to prerequisites. Also, questions about introductory level psychology and sociology. So those, you'll see as you're going through the guide, there are some courses that are what we refer to as spanned courses. So courses that start in the fall term and end in the winter. So they run all the way across fall and winter. And there are two courses of particular interest to students, typically, that work in this way. And those are introductory psychology and introductory sociology. So you cannot begin to take introductory sociology or psychology in the winter term. That has to be taken at the beginning of the fall term, where that's when you would register in your introductory sociology or psychology. The other thing to consider is, again, around summer. Is it possible to take the introductory level psychology course throughout the summer? Probably, but as I mentioned before, we don't know the schedule for the summer term yet. So it's likely that these courses will be available, but there's no way for us to guarantee that that's the case. So, I think one message that I want to sort of talk with students here is that, it does connect back to this notion of starting in the winter term. It's doing your planning is a little bit more challenging. And so, if you are struggling to find a full set of courses that you can take, if you're using the first year planning guide and you're still struggling to find a full term for yourself, my suggestion is, talk to an academic advisor. They are going to be able to help you to understand, what else might you be able to take? So we, in our first year planning guide, we list the full first year of the of all of the programs at the U of M. So any program, we have listed the full first year, the full first 30 credit hours worth of courses. As Liza mentioned, we hear this 4-year degree, 3-year degree. It's really based on credit hours. It's really a 120 credit hour degree. So if that takes you 3.5 years to complete, great. If it takes you 6 years, then that's what it takes. So, this notion of completing your degree program in a particular time period can often, be challenging for students. However, I also would say that your degree also is going to contain electives. There will be other courses that you may be eligible for that programs do not list as their first year. So how do you know? First of all, each of these pages does have a link to do you want to highlight, Liza, the biological sciences degree requirements? Yeah. So here you will see that, you know, we're taking the first year out of this, but you have an entire degree to complete. And so even though you may be struggling right now to find courses from the list that will work for you, that have space, that, you know, that are available, there may be other options for you. And it, again, today in a session where we have, you know, 50 participants, it's not really possible to go through individually and sort of address how each student might, you know, make a full year. We just can't talk about those things, you know, in a very, very broad way today. So we're really focusing on using the first year planning guide as a starting point. It's very important. We don't answer the question in the first year center. We don't, you know, students ask us, well, what should I take? And we don't, I mean, we can help you to figure that out, but we're never going to say, take this, this, that, and this. Like we just will not tell you that you have to take those at a particular time in a particular way. You have flexibility to choose and select what you need to take. And so, you know, although we do lay out these as the first full year of the program, we have many students who, you know, are in positions similar to what you may find yourselves, where there's no space in a course that's required. So then what happens? That's when the academic advisors come into play, and that's where they will be able to help you. So you start using the chart, you start filling in as much as you possibly can from that chart, you register for as many courses as you possibly can, and then contact an academic advisor and we can help you to sort of fill out your schedule.
Well, I think, Allie, biological science is actually a great example of, you know, you see here in the chart front loaded those very specific key courses, right? Your biologies, chemistry, statistics, your math. Although those are very important courses and ones that I'm sure many of you are very motivated and excited to get a start on, what you have to remember is the more open categories, the 6 credit hours of Faculty of Arts courses and the 6 credit hours of electives are in fact as important to completing that full first year. They are part of the degree program. So I think I really want to impress upon everyone in the audience today to keep an open mind. Don't discount the other open categories as being less important or ones that you don't want to get a start on now. They may very well be the ones that you as a winter term student do have to possibly look at including as part of your course planning in the event that either you can't take the courses in the correct sequence or perhaps you don't have the required prerequisites to do so. And that's okay. You have next fall and winter, as Ali said, possibly the summer term, to continue to make your way down this list. So I think it's just important to recognize that everything that you see here is important. It all contributes to that entire 120 credit hours of coursework. It just may be that you take a slightly different approach and look more at fulfilling electives and more open categories simply for space purposes versus possibly looking at taking a look at some of those specific core courses. And that would be in the model that you find some challenges finding space. And I will have to say, and do have to say to those of you as prospective science students, that finding space in science courses will present some challenges. So please ensure that when you put your course plan together, that you are not including just simply those science courses, that you have spent some time going through the recommended introductory courses list and ensuring that you have courses that fulfill those more open categories, because you likely will have more success finding space in some of those courses in which you have more options. So I think really for me, what I'd like to invite everyone to do is to go back to the guide at the end of the presentation. So again, going back to the very beginning of the guide, finding yourself in the table of contents, specifically the course planning basics, which starts on page 6, and going and downloading your own course planning form. Again, to remind everyone, for those of you that want to connect at some point with an advisor because you do have questions, we will require that in fact you submit and provide us with a completed course plan in advance of setting up a time to meet with you. The reason we want you to do this is because we definitely want you to take the time to review the guide. We recognize that so many of the decisions that you're making are specific to you and are very personal. So we need you to begin that process, put down those courses that you intend on taking, include your name, your student number, and your target faculty or program. And then we as advisors have some information to work with to really help support you as you make your way through this process and make those decisions that are best for you as you start the winter term. So I think really probably last but not least within the guide, I'm just going to pop to the very back page. We'll talk a little bit more about this in tomorrow's session, but I just wanted to highlight that my mouse is going trigger happy here. There are some important deadlines for you to be aware of as a winter term admit. So again, recognizing that the guide walks you through those key deadlines. We'll spend some more time tomorrow going through this important date section, but I just wanted to highlight again that the guide really is your place to go to when it comes time to confirming information, confirming deadlines, and having just a general broader understanding of what it means to be a University of Manitoba student. If we go back to the presentation, then I think really what I just want to highlight is that we're here to support you. So both Ali, myself, and our team of advisors are there for you through the First Year Center. You can reach out to us via email. I think Ali shared the email address in the chat, fycenter@umanitoba.ca. Again, remember to include your course plan if you are looking to book an appointment with an advisor. We're also available by phone as well, keeping in mind that our phone line is 8:30 to 4:30 Central Time, Winnipeg time, and you can reach us at 204-474-6209. I think for me, Ali, those are my best pieces of advice. I think now really it's time for students to dive into the guide. Keep in mind that this process is going to take you several hours. So don't expect that you're going to get this done really quickly. If you want to join us, and I hope that you do, for our registration session tomorrow, the more planning you can do this evening, I think the more value you will find in the session tomorrow as it comes time to start registering for those classes. So if you have time this evening, please go through the guide, follow the steps that I did, highlight those programs that you're interested in, take a look at those key sections on those program planning pages, get yourself your course planning sheet, and really start putting down some courses that you think are maybe required for your program, maybe of interest to you. There's really no right way to go about this. It's really based on where you think you want your winter term to begin and end.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I would just add to that is, you know, the likelihood of you making a tragic mistake that will affect you for the rest of your life when you're choosing courses for one term, it's probably not going to happen. I don't know. I've worked in the First Year Center for 5 years, as has Liza. We've seen probably thousands, well, we have seen thousands and thousands of students. I have never seen a student who, after I look at their first year record, say, well, I guess you messed everything up because you choose everything wrong. That just never happens. Any courses that you choose are, you can use them in some way in your degree program. You're not going to make a mistake. And, the most important thing that for me, when I talk to students who are starting, it's very important, yes, that you fulfill prerequisites and you get some base knowledge. One of the other really key things about the first year of your studies is just figuring out how to be a university student. None of you here have been university students before. Some of you are studying. We're all working remotely, and we'll all be studying remotely. Some of you may be here in Canada, some of you may not be in Canada, some of you, know what program you want, some of you don't. There's all kinds of factors that can affect a student's planning for their first year. So please do not despair. You are not going to make a mistake, that I can assure you. And yeah, I think those are the sort of the key thing that I just want you to take away from this, is that you're not going to make an error. You're not going to just, students just generally, they are able to use all of the courses that they choose in their first year in some way in their degree program. So you're not going to make a mistake. And again, we're talking about, a maximum of 15 credit hours this term out of that whole 120 credit hour degree program. And so again, you have to keep in mind, we'd like you to keep in mind that, it's important to think about that entire degree program, but you can also you can't plan for that right now. You can't plan for what's going to happen in 3 years. That's really, boy, if I could do that, I'd have a better job probably. But anyway, I think that's something to keep in mind, right? That even if you do make a mistake, or you're not able to take a course right now that is a prerequisite, you're going to have time to catch up. Essentially, you're going to have time to add those required courses into your program. And this is a process. This is not just a quick one term and you're done. You have many terms to fulfill those requirements. So don't worry, you're going to get it right. You're not going to make a mistake. We're here to help you. I can't say it enough times. I've put it in the chat a million times. fycenter@umanitoba.ca. That's your go-to place to get, to connect with an academic advisor. Our phone number, if you can flip back, Liza, one, just to put that back on the screen. Our phone number is there. The advisors are here to help. I think I mentioned in a, so again, we're getting questions here about specific people and their particular situation. We can't address that in this kind of a scenario here. If you have specific questions about your own personal experience, your own schedules, you have to contact us at the numbers and the email address on the screen here. And then an academic advisor is going to be able to I'm just going to, that's where you can find information. So I think that's it for me. Liza, if you want to add anything,
no, I
would just want to make, just reminder to, just a reminder that again, if you email our FY Center at umanitoba.ca or phone us, you may, I guess what we're asking, or what I'm suggesting is that, we have 1,300 new students who are trying to do the same kinds of things that you're doing. If you send us an email and you do not get an immediate response from an academic advisor, that's okay. Your email is in the queue, we're in the lineup, and we answer emails from students and communicate with students, in as timely a manner, as fast as we possibly can. We just have a large number of students who are actually contacting our office right now. So if you don't get through on our phone line, send an email. It may take a couple of days for an advisor to get back to you. That's just sort of the nature of what is happening here, and the remote nature of what we're doing and all these things. So, don't fret if you don't get an answer right away. If you send us an email, we will get a response from us. That's a guarantee, but it might take a day or two. So,
and remember when you're emailing to include as much information as possible as well. So, and to that point, and just another reminder is that we will require that you provide us with that course planning sheet. So there's no way to get around that. You want to take the time to review the guide. You want to put down, your best thoughtful plan. We're happy to review that with you, but we will not walk you through that process. We're really asking you now after this sort of presentation to go back and start to put that plan together for you. We're there to support you 100%, but take some time, and it will take some time to put that plan together. And rest assured, we will certainly answer any questions that you have. But the more information that you can provide us in the email, and to ensure that you include your course planning sheet, the quicker response and the quicker access, frankly, you will have to an advisor. We won't have to do a lot of back and forth to try and clarify what it is that you want. So help us to help you, and provide us with as much information as possible, and we will definitely get you there to the end.
Yeah, and I think just a reminder to those students who have already registered for courses, because we did have some students joining us who have already registered, an academic advisor certainly is able to review the courses that you've chosen. So if you've already registered, you don't need to include that course planning sheet as part of your email. We can use your academic record that we see what you've already registered for, and then we can, just confirm whether you've made choices that are going to help. Yeah, so I think, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so for those students, just make sure you include your name, your student number, email us from your University of Manitoba email, because remember, that's the only way in which we're able to correspond with you. So the more you develop these really good habits, I think across all units and offices that you deal with, providing us with that consistent information really helps us to get back to you as quick as possible. So definitely, if you've registered for your classes and you want to connect with an advisor, give us a call or send us an email. Just make sure that you have that information, including your student number, on hand, so that we ensure that we're reviewing the correct student's record. So yeah, I think just on behalf of Ali and I just want to thank everyone. Thank you for choosing to join us this winter term. It's been a really interesting year for all of us. Again, we've joined you from our home today, which certainly was probably not what we thought we would be doing in November of 2020. But nevertheless, we've been doing it for quite a few months. I think we've certainly found a way to ensure that we can provide the best and most timely support to you as a student. So even though we're not all together on campus, we certainly hope to be there one day, but we're certainly looking forward to working with you this winter term. So if you don't reach out to us in advance of your registration, don't forget us throughout the winter term, because we're here to support you. I promise you're going to have questions. And if we don't have the answers, we'll be able to refer you to someone on campus who does. So I hope everyone joins us tomorrow again, 9 a.m. for part 3 of Get Ready to Register. So we're going to take that course plan and we're going to show you how to create a timetable and register for those courses. So I hope to see everyone tomorrow. Good luck with your homework, and we'll see you soon. Oh, you are muted, Ali.
Perfect. That's the you're on mute, you're muted. It happens all the time.
Can't hear you.
Yeah. So I'm where to mail my homework. Oh, no, you don't have to send your course planning sheet in today. That's just if you want to talk to an academic advisor personally. For everyone who will be, for those of you who want to join us tomorrow, your homework is to really look at the first year planning guide and sort of create a list of courses that you think you might be interested. For those who actually do have some questions, I'm gonna actually allow folks to unmute. So you can ask some general questions. There may be some, just the people who are left here, there may be some overlap, and we'll sort of guide those questions, but I just wanna, for those who are
We're
still
able to
here,
answer some of those questions right now. It might help you.
Yeah, I think so. So
if you've got a bit of time.
If you do, so I see that, John, you had a question. I think I've unmuted you. If you want to ask your question, and then we'll be just mindful about answering. So what's your question, John? I think you should be unmuted. Well, maybe you left. That's weird.
What was John's question? Oh,
I
he
don't know.
wanted to
He
stay on.
just,
Okay.
oh,
Okay.
he just wanted to. So I'm trying to unmute you, John, here. So
Oh
you'll have
yeah,
to.
sorry.
Oh, there
Oh,
you
there we
go. No
go.
problem. Hi.
There. Hi, how are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
Great. Well, my question was, once again, right, I just got out of high school this year, and I decided I'd take 6 months off to just kind of take a break and, get some work done. I've been working a lot, and I know that I'm probably still going to be working maybe throughout my entire university career, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I was thinking maybe 3 courses would be enough, because right now I'm in the University 1 program, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I applied for a chemistry and a physics course. And once again, talking about the summer term, did you guys think it was a good idea to maybe just, if I completed 3 courses this term, because thinking about it now, it's the perfect year to, I won't be able to hang out with people that much anyway because of the pandemic. I really don't mind just taking some time in the summer to complete some courses and kind of get caught up. Most of my friends are, and I know that, university is not, and my career is not supposed to be dependent upon the time of my friends, but it would be nice to be kind of caught up with everyone else. So yeah, taking some time in the summer to study. Do you think, okay, if I take 3 courses this term, and then I take maybe 2 courses in the summer, that's like a full course load, like combined, I guess, right?
Yep. Yep. So I think that's probably, again, this was a common question. I think that, there's a number of questions in the chat about taking summer courses. And the way that we talk to students about summer courses and the advisors in the first year center, the way that we talk about that is summer courses work a little bit differently. So some of the summer courses are very condensed. So what you would take in a fall term over 12 weeks, you would do in the summertime over 6 weeks or 12 weeks. But a lot of those courses, those 3 credit hour courses, will be done on a 6-week schedule, or 6 credit hours will be done over 6 weeks. So you're really condensing the work that you're doing in those courses. So is it possible to catch up to your friends who started in the fall time? Sure. But I appreciate your comment, John, about, it's not really about your friends, it's more about you. But I get that. But I also think that, again, we're talking about the first term in what
Mm-hmm.
will be, 10 terms for you to finish your degree, basically, right? So that's sort of what we're talking about here. So will you have time to sort of catch up? Yes. But that's not something I think students need to be planning right now. It's really hard to say, like, could you take courses in the summer? Yeah. Should you? That depends on what's going on in the summer. That depends on a whole slew of things. So there are options to sort of catch up over the summer that is going to work for many of you. Um, there are going to be classes that do not work. That's not going to work for some students. And so when we're talking about this planning, I think it's important to keep in mind that really we're talking about your first term of many, many terms. And there are
Mm-hmm.
many degree requirements and many courses, the 120 credit hours, that's 40 courses that you would be taking. So, if we say, as I said, an average of 4 courses per term, which is what we see mostly, that's this pretty typical number, 3 or 4, probably closer to 4 as an average, but nonetheless, that's 10 terms. So whether you do 10 terms in a row, winter, summer, fall, winter, summer, fall, winter, summer, fall, winter, or you take a break for some terms, which is pretty common for students, you have to complete that number of credit hours. And that looks very different for many, many students. For most students, that looks quite different. So again, this is one of those non-answers, because the answer is it depends on all kinds of things. And that's one of the reasons that keeping regular contact with an academic advisor is really important, because these are the things that we can also help with. How do you catch up, so to speak? I don't even like that term, because I don't really feel like anyone is ever behind. So there's nothing to catch up, because your path is your path. None of you are behind anything by starting in winter term. You've just chosen a different path. So that's kind of what I would say. Like, you have to focus your planning right now on what are you going to do in winter term. Once you get winter term down, then we can talk about summer, because we don't even know what you're going to get into for winter term. So how can we talk about future terms if we don't have a basis for what you've already taken and where you're headed? So I hope that helps, John. I don't know for sure if it does, but and Liza, if you want to add anything in there, please feel free. But I just want to make sure that that helps you, John.
Yeah, I think really
Yeah,
just,
I think John's gone, but anyways.
okay. No, I just think John brought up a good
Oh
point.
no, there you are. Oh,
Um,
maybe something happened. I don't know where he went. Anyway.
I think he brought up a good point in just that idea of recognizing what he has going on in his life and making accommodations related to how many courses he was going to take. So he said, like, I am still going to be working in the winter. So for him, taking 5 courses may not be the best fit, because you want to ensure that you have the time and attention to be as successful as possible in those courses. I think a reminder, just based on some of the things that I see happening in the chat, our winter term is remote, so there will not be in-person classes. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but primarily all courses will be done remotely. So you will not be descending onto campus during the winter term. Everything will be online. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow during the registration section. We will be addressing lab-based courses as well, because I do see that there are some questions in the chat related to lab-based courses. And again, there are some instances in which, and small instances in which, students will be asked to come to campus to fulfill some components of an in-person lab requirement, but that will all be very visible and clear to you on your day of registration when you are registering for courses. So we'll highlight that again tomorrow. So might be a reason for you to check back with us tomorrow so that we can show you in real time how you identify the way in which your course or lab is going to be delivered. I think.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
There's a question here about credit hours.
Yeah.
So the question is, do students usually take 15 credit hours
I saw that
in one term, or is it like too much pressure? It's like too much pressure. I will tell you that, that can be a real issue for students. Does it mean it's too much pressure for every single student? Absolutely not.
No.
There are many, many students who do very, very well in their studies, taking 15 credit hours in a term. Do we recommend that for every single student? Not necessarily. In the first year planning guide, there's a section on how to determine your course load. It's really important to take a look at that. If you are great at managing your time, you have good, strong study skills, you are interested and engaged with all of your topics, you don't have, a full-time job and 3 kids to take care of, and you have the time to dedicate yourself to being a student, then 15 credit hours would potentially work very well for you. But you have to think about, do you have to work? Do you have other responsibilities? What other things are a part of your life that are important to you? And so, do you need to maintain full-time student status? Some students do, some students don't. Do you need funding for funding purposes? So I'm going to get to the condensed question in a second. Just give me 1 sec. And so, I think it's important that you look at that course, how to determine your course load section. That's very, very important, because it's very individualized. I would never take 5 courses in a term, just because that's not how my brain works. And that for me, that would be too much. But But for other people, for Liza, she could easily do 15 credit hours per term because she's on the ball, she's on top of things, she's not a procrastinator. I'm a procrastinator. So,
I'm gonna
you know,
write
I
all
know
these
that,
things down.
like, I know this about myself. So it wouldn't work for me to take 4 courses in a term where everything is being delivered remotely. That for me is not going to work. For someone else, it's going to work way better than, you know, what might be for our in-person courses. So these are things, again, use the first year planning guide to talk about, you know, talk about, reflect upon your course load and what works for you individually. I'm going to just quickly jump to the condensed summer courses. There's
Oh yeah.
a question around clarifying that. What I mean by that is, if a course is, for example, we'll use Econ 1010. So Economics 1010, if you take it in the fall, it's 12 weeks. If you take it in the winter, it's 12 weeks. If you take it in the summer, it's 6 weeks. It's the same amount of content. It's the same amount of work. It's the same number of tests, but it's over 6 weeks instead of 12 weeks. So essentially, it's like double the work in a shorter amount of time. So you get it over and done with quicker, but it's very much more work. It's the same expectations, the same topics are covered, the same information. It goes from 12 weeks down into a 6-week course. So that's what I mean by condensed. There's nothing left out. There's nothing cut down. It's the same information. It's just over a shorter period of time. So I hope that helps that question. Liza, are there any questions that you might have seen that I'm just trying to scroll through here? Is there anything you want to address?
I think maybe just Joshua's asking, you know, what are the recommended number of courses a student should take if they are going to study and work during all of their time in university. And I think, again, recognizing that you have an external commitment is key. And I think a couple of things for you to think about would be like, how many hours a week am I working? Because that really does matter. Are you very part-time? Are you, you know, working 20 to 25 hours a week? Because, you know, the number of courses that you take, I think will really be dependent upon the number of hours that you are working, because we only have so many hours in the day to complete not only the tasks that we know we have to do, but all of those other things like eating and sleeping and socializing and some of those things that we sometimes forget to factor in when we are thinking about managing our time. So I think, Joshua, the answer to that would be based on what your commitment is and the kind of student that you are as well. Are you strong at time management? Are you organized? Are you on top of procrastinating? Are you able to get the work that you need to get done in the time that you've allocated because you're going off to work 2 hours later? So you really have to know the kind of person and the kind of student that you are. Keep in mind, you may have to consider if you're on funding, student loans, if you do need to be a full-time student, that begins at 3 courses per term. So whether you take 3, 4, or 5 courses per term, you would be considered a full-time student. So if you have a student loan and you're working maybe 3 courses per term is that magic number for you. But again, that really will be for you to determine. And I think that you're going to learn a lot this term. You're going to fully appreciate the amount of time that is required, not only when you're sitting in class, but the biggest shift that I think students new to university find is the number of hours required outside of class time. Class time is frankly just a little blip in the overall learning that takes place in that course. What really is time intensive is all of that time outside of scheduled class time. When you're researching, doing assignments, reviewing notes for the next day's lecture, all of those successful strategies that we know successful students use. And, as a plug, that's part of what we do in the First Year Center. We offer a series of academic success workshops dedicated to really walking you through and teaching you how to be a successful student based on well-researched principles. So if you want to head over to umanitoba.ca, you can search for academic success workshops, and we have a series already recorded. We'll be offering them again in the winter term for you as a winter term student, but if you want to get a jump start, feel free to take a look at some of those resources, because that you might find them to be super helpful as you're trying to find that really delicate balance.
Yeah, and the other thing too is there will be more orientation type activities to help get you ready for the winter term, for your first term of study. So, you know, you'll be getting information at the same email address that we sent you an invitation to these sessions. You'll be getting information there. Both your U of M account, if you've gone ahead and you've activated your U of M email account, you'll get information there, plus using we'll send information to the email address that you used to apply to the U of M. So make sure you're checking both of those. If you have not claimed your UMNet ID, then Liza, can you whip back to that slide at the beginning, just so we can show students that slide? So if you have not yet claimed your UMNet ID, there's a website you can go to. Liza's going to put that up on the screen. I have no idea how that green line got on the screen. I'm not really sure what that was, but anyways, it's signum.umanitoba.ca, and you'll be able to claim your UMNet ID there and get your U of M email account. It is critical that you use your U of M email account daily. This is the place that once you've claimed your UMNet ID, we will not communicate with you in any other email address. You have to use your U of M email account. You need to make sure that you are checking that daily. That is critical, especially in the remote times. You know, we don't send letters anymore. We don't do those things. We communicate with students via your U of M email account, and the expectation is that you check that regularly. So I didn't see the email. I didn't check my email is not really sort of a valid reason for not tending to things in a timely fashion. So, you know, make sure you're checking information. Like, you know, the thing here is that you're now university students, and so this is not the same as high school where you have a teacher who's, you know, following up with you on things, or a guidance counselor who's contacting you to see how things are going. We have services and supports, but it's important that, you know, university students are active in their education and they are seeking information. The fact that you're here today tells me that that's who you are already anyways. So that's great. So keep doing what you're doing. Seek out information and ask questions. umanitoba.ca/first year, that's a place where you will find all of the information you need about planning and how to find an advisor, how to talk to us, how to ask questions. You know, all the information there. The first year planning guide, you'll find, you know, a link to the first year planning guide page there. So there's all kinds of good information there. I'm sort of looking at the time. It's kind of, we've gone way past our hour that we anticipated. I hope I hope that, you know, most of your questions have been answered, or at least you may know where to find the answer if we didn't answer your question. There are still some students who are messaging me in the chat sort of privately. There's still some students who are asking about their own personal circumstances. So what I've shared with you so far is what I can do. I want anyone who has questions left over about their courses and their course selection to please email an academic advisor. Again, fycenter@umanitoba.ca. It may take a little bit of time for us to get back to you, but other than what I've shared already, there's not much more I can do in the planning way for students in the chat function of this webinar. So anyone who's left still has questions, please again, finish your, you know, we can follow up at fycenter@umanitoba.ca, and an advisor will help you with your questions. I think we'll just throw out a last call for questions. If anyone does have a question and they want to ask it verbally out loud, you know, throw something in the chat and then I'll unmute you so that you have the ability to actually ask your question. probably we don't have any more questions because I think we've offered questions up a lot. So in the absence of seeing anything coming in through the chat, I will officially say thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to see you tomorrow so that we can dive into the next step of this process. We are so happy that this was helpful to students. We're so happy to welcome you to the U of M. We can't wait till we can get back to campus in person and see you all in our office and provide like a really nice warm welcome to you. But we're glad you're here. We're glad you participated today. And I think that's it for me. I will, surprisingly enough, stop talking and let Liza finish it off.
Thanks, everyone. We will see you all tomorrow. And thanks to Ali.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.